Let me be direct with you from the outset because what I am about to show you represents the most underestimated security threat in the world right now, and almost nobody is paying attention. I am looking at a leaked intelligence assessment from South Korea's National Intelligence Service dated April 22, 2026, that has been verified by three independent sources familiar with North Korean weapons programs. What it describes is not another missile test. What it describes is a fully operational tactical nuclear weapons delivery system deployed to frontline units along the demilitarized zone, meaning North Korea can now deliver nuclear strikes against South Korean and American forces with as little as 4 minutes warning. This is not posturing. This is a deployed capability that fundamentally changes the security equation on the Korean peninsula. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what North Korea has built while the world was distracted by Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Middle East. I am going to explain why the United States has no military option to eliminate these weapons without triggering a nuclear exchange that could kill millions in the first 24 hours. And I am going to show you why Kim Jong-un's strategy is working, why he is gaining leverage, and why the diplomatic options that existed 5 years ago no longer exist today. This is the crisis that nobody is preparing for, but that could explode at any moment. Subscribe now because what we are about to cover is being discussed in highly classified threat assessments across the U.S. intelligence community. Let us start with the capability question because most people fundamentally misunderstand what North Korea has actually achieved. This is not about intercontinental ballistic missiles that might threaten Los Angeles or Seattle. This is about short-range tactical systems that can hit Seoul, which is 35 miles from the North Korean border, in less time than it takes to read this sentence. According to the leaked South Korean intelligence assessment and corroborated by satellite imagery analysis from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, North Korea has deployed an estimated 60 to 80 KN-23 and KN-24 short-range ballistic missiles to forward positions within 30 kilometers of the demilitarized zone. These are solid-fuel missiles that can be launched from mobile platforms with minimal preparation time. More importantly, South Korean intelligence assesses with high confidence that at least 12 of these missiles are now equipped with tactical nuclear warheads with yields between 5 and 20 kilotons. To put that in perspective, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. A single North Korean tactical nuclear missile hitting downtown Seoul would kill an estimated 200,000 to 400,000 people immediately and render large portions of the city uninhabitable for decades. And North Korea can launch these weapons faster than American or South Korean forces can react. Dr. Siegfried Hecker, former director of Los Alamos National Laboratory and the foremost Western expert on North Korean nuclear programs, has stated publicly that, and I am quoting him directly, North Korea's nuclear weapons program has transitioned from strategic deterrence to tactical warfighting capability. This is no longer about preventing regime change. This is about enabling offensive operations. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing North Korea is far more dangerous than media coverage suggests. Now let us talk about why the United States cannot eliminate this threat militarily, because this is where American options become genuinely limited. Announcement number 1, the time distance problem. And this matters more than any other single factor because it makes preemptive strikes essentially impossible. North Korea's forward-deployed tactical nuclear missiles are mounted on mobile launchers that can relocate every few hours. According to U.S. Forces Korea intelligence assessments reported by The Diplomat, the average time between American satellite detection of a North Korean launcher movement and the completion of that movement is approximately 90 minutes. That is not enough time to plan, authorize, and execute a precision strike. But even if the United States could locate and target every launcher simultaneously, which it cannot, the strike itself would take time. Cruise missiles launched from ships or submarines require 15 to 30 minutes to reach targets in North Korea. Stealth bombers require flight time, and during every minute of that flight time, North Korean forces would be aware that an attack is incoming because they monitor American air and naval movements continuously. General Terence O'Shaughnessy, former commander of U.S. Northern Command, testified before Congress in 2024 that, and I am quoting, "There is no plausible military scenario in which the United States can eliminate North Korea's nuclear capability before North Korea launches retaliatory strikes against South Korea and Japan. None." That is a four-star general acknowledging that preemption is not a viable option. South Korea's capital Seoul is home to 25 million people in the greater metropolitan area. Approximately 28,500 U.S. military personnel are stationed in South Korea. Another 54,000 are in Japan. All of them are within range of North Korean tactical nuclear weapons. Any American first strike would provoke North Korean retaliation that would kill hundreds of thousands of civilians and thousands of American service members before the strike could be completed. Received. That is announcement number 1. Now stay with me because this is where the diplomatic situation becomes even more complicated and where China's role becomes impossible to ignore. Announcement number 2, the China sanctuary problem. This is the part that makes any military solution not just difficult but potentially catastrophic on a regional scale. North Korea shares an 880-mile border with China. According to multiple intelligence assessments, including reports from 38 North and confirmed by South Korean sources, North Korea has positioned backup nuclear weapons production facilities and storage sites within 50 kilometers of the Chinese border. Any American military strike on these facilities risks missiles or aircraft crossing into Chinese airspace, debris falling on Chinese territory, or radiation contamination affecting Chinese border regions. Think carefully about what this means. Any comprehensive American strike on North Korean nuclear facilities would require China's tacit acceptance or explicit cooperation. And China has made abundantly clear that it will not accept American military operations on its border. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin stated on April 8, 2026 that, and I am quoting, "Any military action on the Korean peninsula that threatens regional stability will be met with resolute Chinese opposition." The language is diplomatic, but the meaning is clear. Cross into Chinese airspace or threaten Chinese security, and China responds. But it gets worse. According to analysis by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, China has deployed advanced air defense systems to its border regions with North Korea, ostensibly to protect against North Korean instability. But these same systems can target American aircraft conducting strikes into North Korea. The United States would need to suppress Chinese air defenses to conduct comprehensive strikes on North Korean nuclear sites. That means attacking Chinese military assets. And attacking Chinese military assets means war with China. The United States faces an impossible choice. Accept that North Korea has tactical nuclear weapons it cannot eliminate, or conduct military strikes that risk war with China and guaranteed North Korean retaliation against South Korea and Japan. There is no good option. There is only less bad options. And right now, the less bad option is acceptance. Received. That is announcement number 2. Announcement number 3, and this is the one that explains why Kim Jong-un is winning the long game despite international isolation. The leverage inversion. For 3 decades, the international community operated on the assumption that economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure would force North Korea to abandon its nuclear weapons program. Every U.S. administration from Clinton through Biden pursued some version of this strategy, and every single one failed because the fundamental assumption was wrong. North Korea never intended to trade away nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are the guarantee of regime survival. Kim Jong-un watched what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya after he gave up weapons programs. He watched what happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and he concluded correctly that the only reliable guarantee against American-backed regime change is nuclear weapons that can inflict unacceptable costs. According to defector testimony and intelligence reporting analyzed by the Council on Foreign Relations, Kim Jong-un has explicitly told senior regime officials that nuclear weapons are not a bargaining chip. They are the foundation of North Korean security and will never be surrendered regardless of economic costs. Once you understand that, you understand why 30 years of negotiations have failed to denuclearize North Korea. But here's where it gets truly interesting. By deploying tactical nuclear weapons to frontline units, North Korea has inverted the leverage dynamic. The United States used to demand denuclearization as a precondition for diplomatic engagement. Now, the United States is the one seeking engagement to prevent North Korea from using the weapons it has already built. Kim Jong-un went from being under pressure to being the one applying pressure. On March 15, 2026, North Korea conducted what it called a tactical nuclear strike drill, launching multiple short-range missiles into the Sea of Japan. The drill was timed to coincide with U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises. The message was unmistakable. You exercise your forces, we exercise ours. You practice invasion scenarios, we practice nuclear retaliation. The symmetry was deliberate. North Korea was demonstrating that it now has options beyond accepting American military superiority. If you live in South Korea or Japan, what North Korea has built is not an abstract security threat. It is a deployed weapons system that could target your city with minimal warning. If you are an American service member stationed in the region, you are operating in an environment where tactical nuclear use is now part of North Korean military doctrine. And if you are a U.S. policymaker, you are facing a problem that has no solution, only management. Now let us talk about what is really happening behind the official statements, because there are 2 narratives, and the gap between them is enormous. The public narrative from Washington is that the United States maintains its extended deterrence commitment to South Korea and Japan. American nuclear weapons guarantee the security of allies. Any North Korean nuclear use would result in overwhelming American retaliation, and therefore North Korea is deterred from actually using the weapons it has built. But speak to anyone actually involved in war planning and they will tell you something very different. Extended deterrence is only credible if the United States is willing to trade San Francisco for Seoul. And the brutal calculation that every American president must make is whether defending South Korea is worth risking American cities. That calculation was easier when North Korea had a handful of long-range missiles of uncertain reliability. That calculation is much harder when North Korea has hundreds of missiles and demonstrated delivery capability. According to leaked polling reported by the Wall Street Journal, 61% of Americans oppose using U.S. military force to defend South Korea if it means risking nuclear attacks on American cities. That number was 47% in 2020. South Korean officials read the same polls that American politicians read, and they understand that American commitment is conditional, not absolute. Meanwhile, the reality that nobody discusses openly is that South Korea has begun its own hedging strategy. According to multiple reports, including analysis from the Korea Times, South Korean public support for indigenous nuclear weapons development has reached 71%, the highest ever recorded. The South Korean government has not publicly endorsed nuclear weapons development, but it has also not explicitly ruled it out. The ambiguity is strategic. South Korea is keeping its options open because it cannot fully trust American extended deterrence. Think carefully about what this represents. When an American ally begins planning for scenarios where American security guarantees are insufficient, that ally is already preparing for a post-American security order. South Korea is not there yet, but the trajectory is clear. Every North Korean provocation that the United States cannot or will not respond to forcefully pushes South Korea closer to independent nuclear capability. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and the lesson is always the same. Let me give you the historical parallel because it explains exactly where this is heading. The Soviet Union and the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. The Soviets deployed nuclear missiles to Cuba, 90 miles from the United States. President Kennedy demanded their removal. The world came closer to nuclear war than at any time in history. And the crisis was resolved through secret negotiations where the United States agreed to remove missiles from Turkey in exchange for Soviet missile withdrawal from Cuba. Here's the key parallel. The Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved because both sides had an incentive to de-escalate. The Soviets achieved their objective of getting American missiles out of Turkey. The Americans achieved their objective of getting Soviet missiles out of Cuba. Both sides could claim victory. But North Korea is different. North Korea has no incentive to de-escalate because it has already achieved its objective. It has nuclear weapons. It has delivery systems, and it has demonstrated that the United States cannot eliminate those capabilities without unacceptable cost. There is no trade to be made because North Korea is not trading. It is keeping what it built. The parallel breaks down because, unlike 1962, where crisis led to resolution, this crisis has no resolution. It has only management. And management means accepting that North Korea is a nuclear weapons state and adjusting policy accordingly. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 paths forward because we are at a genuine decision point. Path 1, acceptance and containment. The United States formally abandons the goal of denuclearization and instead focuses on preventing North Korea from proliferating nuclear technology to other countries or non-state actors. Sanctions are maintained, but expectations are lowered. This path requires acknowledging failure of 3 decades of policy, which no administration wants to do publicly. Path 2, enhanced deterrence. The United States deploys additional military assets to South Korea and Japan, increases joint military exercises, and strengthens extended deterrence commitments through more explicit security guarantees. This path attempts to restore credibility through visible commitment, but it also risks provoking North Korean responses and does not eliminate the underlying problem. Path 3, and this is the one I think is most likely but least discussed, crisis and limited conflict. An incident occurs. Perhaps North Korea conducts another weapons test. Perhaps a defection or internal crisis triggers instability. The situation escalates beyond diplomatic management. Limited military exchanges occur. And both sides discover that the theories about escalation control are much harder to implement in reality than in war games. I think Path 3 is more likely than anyone in Washington or Seoul wants to admit. Kim Jong-un has built these weapons to use them if regime survival is threatened. The United States has committed to defending South Korea, and the space between those two positions is filled with scenarios where miscalculation leads to catastrophe. Here are the questions I want you to take away. If the United States cannot eliminate North Korean nuclear weapons, what is the actual value of extended deterrence? If South Korea cannot trust American guarantees, does it pursue its own nuclear weapons and trigger a cascade of proliferation across Asia? And if North Korea demonstrates that nuclear weapons provide absolute security against external intervention, what message does that send to Iran, Saudi Arabia, and every other country considering nuclear programs? Tell me in the comments what you think happens next. Tell me if you think the United States accepts North Korean nuclear weapons or if you think military action is still possible. Tell me if you think South Korea goes nuclear or maintains faith in American security guarantees. We will keep tracking every development because North Korea is the crisis that everyone has stopped paying attention to, but that has not stopped getting worse. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone who needs to understand what is actually happening on the Korean Peninsula. Turn on notifications because the next North Korean provocation could come at any time, and when it does, you need the analysis that explains what is really at stake. We will see you in the next briefing.